Hi, my name is Freddie, and today we have another update for you on our YZF-R1 MotoAmerica Superbike project. This is actually a really exciting one for us because we have a whole bunch of really exciting technical implementations that I really feel are going to kind of step our motorcycle up to the next level, which at this point is getting harder and harder to do. So we're going to get right into it. There's a few things that we've been trying to do that we've mentioned in the last couple of updates to try to make this motorcycle more serviceable and basically easier to manage at the racetrack, especially in the event of like an accident, a crash, something where we have to swap stuff out. So the first one is just kind of a basic update. And we've had Chris, one of the guys here, design these really trick little brake line standoffs. And what these do is essentially they mount to the fork like so. And they allow us to use a zip tie mount to essentially secure the brake line assembly to the fork, and then have a separate brake or zip tie, cable tie, that actually secures the brake line to that standoff. That does a few things. For one, it makes it where we can just very quickly snip and replace the brake tie the cable tie that holds it to the mount. But it also keeps our geometry ideal. It stops this thing from rubbing triple clamps or any other part that we don't want it to. We can use it to help secure any sensor wiring and everything. So that's one of the things we're going to be installing those today. These are basically just a carbon fiber nylon that we've printed here in house, and we've put a little bit of vinyl on there to minimize any kind of abrasion on the fork. Basically a almost indestructible printable material that we use and make here at the shop. And then the other kind of less exciting, but exciting for me update is we designed our own reluctor rings, which these are essentially, ABS ring is what a lot of people call them, but what they actually do is measure wheel speed front and rear. And the reason why we changed these is just to look for a little bit better accuracy. The original ones you can see on the bike, they have kind of a small window and there's a whole bunch of teeth there. We don't really need that level of teeth in those really small windows for the sensor that we're using, which is a non-standard sensor. Kind of this is what's used in World Superbike and MotoGP. It's a little bit bigger, so we're going to be using this much nicer, in my opinion, will be much more accurate wheel speed sensor ring. So those are going to be going on. And then we'll just get to the more exciting stuff. We have this really, really trick factory Suter Superbike swing arm. And something that's really cool about this is actually the very first of its kind in the world. And you might look at that and go, well, you already have a Suter swing arm on the motorcycle. That's just another Suter swing arm. What's the difference? It's actually a big difference. Cost, first and foremost. And then functionally, this is a completely different technology. So something you can compare looking at these just kind of, just right away, you'll see that the current swing arm that we have has totally different welds. There's from the front to the back, there's an additional weld kind of at the midsection there. And then at the back, there's sort of a different pattern there. The reason for that is there's more pieces on this version and also the type of construction used. So essentially this is an all CNC swing arm. This one is not. So this is still a fantastic and super high level swing arm. What we're trying to test here, we changed a few other things that I can't really go into, but the construction of the arm is completely different. So what we're going to see is a different characteristic in terms of flex, and that's in both states, which means the bike more or less upright and on the side of the tire. So this has a totally different flex characteristic, torsional and lateral. So we've only got one of these for now. We're going to test it and kind of validate our findings and see, is this going to be a step for us? And if so, then, we'll put another one on the second bike. But it also has some other small adjustments that are just going to kind of enable us to maintain certain targets that we're trying to achieve with our A-bike. Without being too specific, it should be a step forward. So next up, Chris is going to start taking off the old assembly, putting the new one on, and getting everything set up. Okay, so we are progressing with this swing arm. We've got everything installed. We've got our OG Superbike shock in here, not the new one. We got problems. So one we weren't expecting, but adjustment with some dimensions on this, one that we didn't discuss. And what we're having is a very minor clearance event from the back of the shock to the inside of the shock tunnel here. And that's not going to work for us. Can't use it like that. It would for sure be unsafe. And, you know, that's going to be a problem. So we've got a solution already. Fortunately, those guys are super talented, and, you know, everybody makes errors, and they didn't account for the linkage that we're using is what I think happened. We haven't gone into that yet. Instead, we're just trying to focus on a solution. So short-term solution is we've got a couple of new link designs. One of them actually we've been wanting to test anyway that we're going to have made up, and the other one is an exact copy more or less of what's in there, but it allows for slightly different mounting geometry. So essentially it's going to completely emulate our rate, progression, all that stuff of the link that we have now. So it's not going to in any way affect our settings or force us to adapt anything to work around that new linkage. But what it is going to do is sort of just move the shock forward just a hair, because we're talking a very, very minor amount of clearance that we need, like a millimeter. And before you ask, no, we can't tolerate or clearance anything in there. We've already evaluated that. We're using essentially the smallest end-eye that we can on the shock, and it's just not safe to remove any more material. To just, that would be the simple solution. Just cut that and clear it out. We can't do that. So what we're doing now is we've sent those designs to a few places. We actually do technically have a machine that could make that, but we don't have the material that we should use. What we have is a little on the soft side to make a link like that. The stuff they call for is kind of a rare, in the US at least, aluminum. We don't have it. So we've sent that out to a few partners, ask if they can bang this out for us really quickly. And that's the goal right now, is we're just going to try to find that link, get that in here, and then long-term Suter's just going to make us another swing arm. So it's kind of a bummer for them, but I'm really happy they're stepping up and doing that. That's the right thing to do, and it's pretty awesome. So we'll have the badass new swing arm at some point. In the meantime, we should have essentially a functional and testable prototype. So that's what we're working at. Stressful, but it's just the way it is, you know, especially Superbike stuff. It's just a constant problem solving exercise, and it's inevitable that this stuff's going to happen. You know, and same thing when we get to the racetrack, we've got brand new software and some new electronics parts. There's going to be issues. It's just the way it is. So that's part of the process. On to something more cool. We have this really super secret sneak peek. This is actually a brand new Superbike sprocket from our good friends at Vortex Racing. Really stoked to be working with those guys this year. This is a company that we've had a great relationship with for a long time. They also happen to bring in our favorite chains. They're the national distributor for EK. And, you know, you guys know that we love the EK 3D. The GP variant is what we're going to be using. Just a badass chain. It's got the machined link, so it doesn't weigh very much. Super strong MotoGP stuff. So I'm really excited. We're going to be using those again on the Superbike this year. And the Vortex guys wanted us to see this really trick new sprocket. And, you know, honestly, I like it a lot. I think that the stuff they've been doing, design was a little long in the tooth. Sorry, Vortex folks. I'm assuming you agree because you've updated this. But, yeah, stoked to be using that. This is just kind of like an early prototype, but really nice. And it's lighter than the old one. So we're going to be rocking those at the test this weekend, see how they hold up, and send them that data. Yeah, so that's kind of where we are right now. We've also got these trick new Bitubo dampers. Probably not going to be able to get these mounted in time for the test because we need a special clamp to suit all of our bodywork and sort of mounting restrictions. But really nice pressurized steering damper that Bitubo makes. We're going to be switching to those, so that's exciting. Okay, so today is a good day. We're chipping away. Obviously, we've got the swing arm fitted, beautiful piece of machinery. And we've gotten a special delivery from Bitubo, and this is something we've really, really been excited about. And I've known was coming for a good while now, and the day is here. So what we have is what looks to be kind of a weird shock, right? We've got, I'll grab one of the other ones. This is our normal Superbike race shock that we use versus this guy. Well, the first thing that's most obvious, it doesn't have a big reservoir on it. And if you look a bit closer, you can see there's a bit of a difference in the shaft there. So what this is a through rod shock absorber. And what that means is essentially this is for one thing, a technology that we don't even really see here in the States or in a lot of other superbike series, but it's commonly used in MotoGP. And essentially the damping system has a rod which goes through that damping system versus having a system where essentially it's displacing another piston that moves back and forth in a reservoir in the simplest of terms. So in some ways, a damping system that could be seen as simpler mechanically, but it's actually a really tricky thing to get right. So what's really cool about this shock absorber is this is the very same technology that won the British Superbike Championship on a YZF-R1 with the factory Yamaha team over there. And first one in the USA. We're really excited to have a factory partnership with Bitubo. They're going to be working with us really closely this year to help get us really dialed in for the Superbike series here in the US. And yeah, so kind of cool to get to see this thing. You guys are maybe the first YouTube viewers to get to see something like this up close. So really kind of a special piece of equipment. It's going to be a bit different for us because our old shock, which is honestly a badass shock, it has high speed and low speed compression and rebound adjustment here. That's what this outer and inner adjuster is. This guy doesn't do that. So it uses kind of what we have conventionally seen with Olin Superbike shocks, which is just our standard low speed adjustment. And in talking to the engineers there, they're saying it's because the way this system works, it just doesn't need that extra adjustment. So that's going to be something we've got a test coming up really soon that we've been sort of quiet about. Really excited to see how this thing does on the racetrack. Okay, so we, along with our really exciting mechanical updates, we'll call them, suspension and some other odds and ends, swing arm, that kind of thing. A really huge update for this year that I'm really excited about is Yamaha has sent us a brand new firmware and software revision, which basically these things directly affect, you know, right now we're using the factory Yamaha Magneti Morelli ECUs. These are a couple of them that we have. Actually, this one was one of Johnny Ray's, which is kind of cool. Basically the way these work, it's a combination of really powerful electronic hardware and then special firmware that's being developed by factory Yamaha that interfaces with this hardware and more or less tells the motorcycle what to do. It tells the ECU how to control all these systems with our engine braking, our power delivery, wheelie control, traction control, all that good stuff. And what happens is Yamaha is always evolving these things in the World Superbike program, and then they trickle down those updates to us. So this year we're getting a really huge update. Last year we got a big one relative to when I was with WSBK. Now we have another one that's actually several evolutions over that, and it's in line with what the factory is using now. So it's really exciting for us. Has a totally different interface, and so there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve. There's some different families of settings and maps and stuff in there that we're going to have to test and adapt to. And we also have some totally different strategy with engine braking control and some other little things that we had, areas that seemed like they could have a little bit of improvement. So I'm really happy to see that we're getting all those updates and improvements. And basically what's going to happen is I have to plug these guys into my laptop, and I will go through an update process. And what I'm going to do is for this one, since I have a couple of extra of these ECUs, what we'll do is we'll leave the old ECUs with the firmware that we were using last year. I'm going to make a calibration that it's with our old firmware, put all of our settings in there from last year's firmware, and then I'm going to make a new calibration with the new firmware. And when we're at the racetrack, instead of having to like flash ECUs and jumping around like that, I'm just going to have two ECUs with the new firmware and the new calibration, and then the ECUs that are in the bikes with the old firmware and the calibration with that old firmware for this test. So what we'll do is we'll test them ABA and just kind of compare, look at data. I'm sure we're going to go right to this, but I just want to have that really clear comparison so we can see the differences. So maybe not as exciting for you guys. For me, that's exciting. That's going to be really cool to test that out. I think that's going to do it for this one. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to like this video, subscribe, and if you have anything you want us to see or cover, comment below. What I can say is stay tuned, because there's some really exciting stuff coming up. I still can't say anything for another 4 days, but probably around the time that you're seeing this, there's going to be some really exciting news coming. And shortly after that, some really badass stuff's going to be hitting our YouTube channel. So stay tuned for that. Thanks again.